Are you ready for Turkey Day, but forgot the cranberry sauce? Grab last minute essentials with free delivery on your first Instacart order. A minimum $10 order is required and terms apply. This offer is good from now through November 24th. Click the link in the show notes to get your last minute Thanksgiving essentials today with free delivery on your first Instacart order.
Hey, Strategy Simplified. In this fast-paced episode, Namaan walks you through Strategy Sprint, a one-week virtual consulting project hosted by Management Consulted. As a part of Strategy Sprint, you serve a real-world client through a one-week consulting engagement in a team of 6, all while being led and mentored by an MBB consultant. Listen in to hear Namaan and Catherine, a 3-time former participant, share perspective on if the experience is right for you.
So what the heck is Strategy Sprint? Maybe you're joining us and you're like, you know what, you keep saying this word, this phrase, and I don't even really know what it is. So Strategy Sprint is an immersive consulting project experience. And the goal of this project experience that we've put together is to help you build real world skills and add relevant experience to your resume. So it's a one-week consulting project that you are staffed on for a real-world client. You are staffed on this project in a team of 6. Your project leader is a former MBB consultant. And the goal of you being on this project is to, number 1, build consulting skills. So the ability to structure a problem-solving approach and bring structure to ambiguity, the ability to build an Excel model, to conduct market research, do competitor analysis, to storyline and storyboard and drive to strong final recommendations in a defined amount of time. Those are the type of real-world skills that Strategy Sprint will help you build. Number 2, we want to give you language to be able to communicate those skills and the impact that you drove for this client on your resume. So a part of Strategy Sprint after the experiences will actually help you put together bullet points on the resume so that for your particular profile, Strategy Sprint is represented on the right place on the resume, and that the impact that you drove and the skills that you built are communicated in the most compelling way. So we want to not only give you resume-worthy experience, but we actually want to help you implement it onto your resume as well. That's a part of the program. And then finally, last but not least, we want to give you interview-worthy stories as well. So when you're in a consulting interview, the most compelling answer to many of the behavioral questions that you'll be asked is a story. And those stories are all the more compelling if they come from an actual consulting experience. So really, there's a threefold benefit to the program and to going through this project experience. You build the skills that you'll need to succeed on the job. You'll strengthen your resume, and you'll also strengthen your interview performance as well, because you'll build some of the stories that you need to really showcase inside of that process that you've done the type of work that a consultant does, and you understand how consultants operate. So that's the value proposition. That's why you would do Strategy Sprint. How do we execute on it? What does it look like? Is this something that's feasible for you? Well, there are 3 phases to Strategy Sprint. The first is we run you through a self-paced pre-work training curriculum. This is a 10-hour curriculum, and access to that opens up on December 1st. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks of December, you work through this pre-work that's really focused on building some of these core consulting skills that we've talked about. We're not just going to throw you in the fire. We're going to level set you to make sure that you're prepared to actually deliver value to your client and to gain maximum value and learning outcomes out of the project. So you get access to this self-paced training curriculum. It comes with homework, and your homework is graded if you submit it. So you'll get some feedback from our team if you actually decide to engage in that portion of the engagement. After the pre-work, we run you through a 1-day virtual case competition. This is a dry run to help you apply the skills that you've learned. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then we'll give you a break for Christmas and Kwanzaa and the New Year and the holidays, all of that. And then in early January, you'll actually engage with your client on that 1-week engagement. This is a growth-oriented project. So there's no cost cutting. There's no optimization. It's the sexy stuff, right? It's a client that's looking for a growth strategy, and that's really looking for you to drive top line impact for them. So it's a fun project, and it's really a microcosm of an MBB engagement, just condensed into a 1 week time frame. And I'll walk you through what that engagement looks like day by day here in a couple of minutes. But at a high level, those are the 3 phases of strategy sprint. You've got some training, you've got a dry run, then we give you a couple week break, and you come back and you put it all together by working with your team and your project leader on the actual engagement for your client. So let's break this down a little bit more, and then we'll get to the good stuff, which is our Q&A with Catherine. So phase 1, you're going to experience best-in-class training. So this is a video-based curriculum that you'll get access to. This is curriculum. These are lessons. This is training that we don't provide anywhere else. So if you have access to our other courses, if you're a black belt, this is going to be original training material. It's not something that we have just repackaged and put together for Strategy Sprint. It's something original to really help prepare you for the project week. And again, we're teaching core consulting skills like top-down communication, building Excel models, storyboarding, and more. And if you really choose to lean in here, then there's homework associated with each training module so that number 1, you can apply what you're learning. And so number 2, you can get personalized feedback from our team on some of the assignments that we put together. So we'll ask you to build a basic model. We'll ask you to build the skeleton and the structure of a PowerPoint deck based on that model. And if you'll submit those pieces of homework to our team, we'll give you feedback on your model, on your presentation. And that's just a great way to help you identify your gap areas and identify your strengths so that you know the strength and the value that you'll bring to your team before project week. And you'll get to knock some of the rust off or some of the cobwebs off if you haven't done some of this work in a little bit of time. And if you're coming from a non-traditional background, maybe you've never done any of this kind of work before, then this will help give you some confidence that you're going to be able to deliver value during the engagement. I know already that you have the transferable skills that it takes to deliver value. You may just never have applied them in the setting. So the homework will allow you to do that. So that's phase 1. You experience some of that best-in-class training, and you do that on your own pace, on your own time over the first couple of weeks in December. Phase 2 is we practice in a safe environment. So everyone comes together, we do a virtual case competition, and this is a dry run to help you apply the skills that you just built and to give you a sense of what it's going to be like to work with your project team. So there's no real world client yet. This is a prompt that our team, the MC team, has put together. And it's a case competition that's pretty accelerated. It's 6 hours on one day. You're responding to a defined prompt. You're assigning work streams amongst yourselves. You're owning the research. You're owning the analysis. You're owning the final deliverable, which is a deck, and you're delivering that by the end of the day. Our team is there to help you get unstuck, to help mentor you, to make sure that you're on the right track. But really, this is a chance for you to get to know your team members, how they operate, how they work, for you to test out the skills that you've built and not have the pressure of it being an actual client engagement. So this happens on Saturday, December 17th, and everybody wins. The winning team gets a free 1-hour coaching session with our team that you can use whenever you want. If you're not on the winning team, you still win. You'll get a 30-minute coaching session that you can utilize as well. So use that time for a resume review, for networking help, for case prep, behavioral interview prep, whatever you want to use that time for, it's yours. And it's just our gift to you for engaging in this part of Strategy Sprint. So you get to come, have some fun, get to know your team, work on an exciting problem together, build some of these skills, and oh yeah, you get a free goodie at the end just for showing up. After the case competition is over, you'll meet your project leader. You'll be introduced to your client. We'll have a lottery. So we assign the clients at random. So there's no favoritism at play. No one knows who their client is before joining the program. We assign the client at random in a public drawing. So that drawing will happen at the end of the case competition. You'll then at that point know who your project leader is, know who your client is, and you'll go into a short breakout room, and your project leader will lead a quick initial kind of structuring session where you all will break down the problem statement that the client has delivered. You'll have access to some key data and stats as far as the client is concerned, and you'll build a plan of action for how you're going to execute and attack the client kickoff that's happening in a couple of weeks. So the case competition is important, not just because of the application that you get from solving the problem, but it's the first time that you get introduced to your client and the first time you meet your project leader. And there is that initial structuring that happens at the end of the case comp that's really important and critical to success for the engagement that's going to happen a couple of weeks later. So that happens at the end of the case competition as well. Phase 3, what everyone's been waiting for, you put it all together. So you're going to solve a growth problem, a top-line focused problem for a real-world client. And I mentioned this earlier. This is a condensed version of a strategy engagement that you'll find at top boutiques or firms like MBB. We walk you through the same process, and the project is structured in a very similar way. But here, instead of you spending the first week or two defining a problem statement, we've done that for you ahead of time because you only have a week to do the work. So, the problem statement's already defined for you. You're jumping in right at the client kickoff point of the engagement. And your final deliverable for your client is a deck. And it's a deck including your specific recommendations. Imagine a steerco meeting. That's what the final presentation looks like. So your deliverable is, like at most strategy consulting firms and in most strategy engagements, a deck. Each person on the team will own a work stream, and you'll own the slides that are associated with that work stream. And so it's like consulting. You'll work independently, but also together. It's this weird dichotomy where it's a lot of independent work, but at the same time, a lot of collaboration as well. Here's what that looks like. Monday, the first day of the engagement, you have a kickoff with your team to align on on how you're going to approach and attack the client kickoff. Then you move right into the client kickoff meeting. This is where you'll ask clarifying questions. You'll come with your initial hypothesis based on the problem statement that you reviewed, and you will just gather as much data and clarification from the client as you can. You'll then move into another all hands meeting where you will dissect and really digest what the client told you. You'll assign final work streams, and you'll move into starting to own the specific work streams that each person has now been assigned. And then you'll have a one-on-one with your project leader where they will help you get started on where to do the research, how to do the research, how to be hypothesis driven in that research, where they would look first if they were you. So you'll get some MBB mentorship there, and they'll help you think about just how to approach the work the way a consultant would. So that's Monday, and you'll spend the rest of that day getting started on your work stream. Tuesday to Thursday, you meet once a day with your entire team to ensure alignment, to ensure that there's one narrative that's coming together for the clients, that you're not just off doing your own work that doesn't fit in with the overall story that you want to tell. And then you'll have a one-on-one with your project leader every day as well. They'll help you get unstuck. They'll mentor you. They'll review your assumptions, your model, the slides you're putting together. They'll co-work with you in that one-on-one. So you get that hands-on help and mentorship every day of project week. On Thursday, as the research has been done, as the analysis is coming together, as kind of the ghost deck is starting to come together, you'll meet with your partner. And the partner on the project is our Chief Learning Officer here at MC, Stephanie Knight. She'll play the role of partner. And so your team will have a partner meeting on the Thursday afternoon. You'll get separate input on your story and your deliverable from someone with a third-party perspective. And this is very similar to what happens at MBB in the days and weeks leading up to an interim or a final meeting, where the engagement manager, the analysts, and the associates will have these kind of partner meetings to pressure test the story, run everything through a sanity check, and just make sure that there are no gaps and no overlaps in the story as well. So you'll get that experience on the Thursday. You'll refine what you have to refine after that meeting. And then on Friday, you'll have a final team meeting to ensure that the deck is sanitized, that it's ready to go, it's client friendly. You will present your recommendations to the client on the Friday, and they will be there live in person. And when I say live and in person, I mean on Zoom, but they will be there ready to just digest and hear everything that you have to say about their business. And 100% of the clients that we've supported, we've been running Strategy Sprint for 3 or 4 years now, multiple projects a year. Every single client ends up implementing the recommendations that our teams make because they are really, really hungry for answers to the business problems that they're facing. And I'll let Catherine talk about in a few minutes some of the impact that one of her projects had on a client. But you'll present to the client. You lead that presentation. It's not us. It's not your project leader. Like you as a team, you will present your part of the presentation, and you will really own that client meeting and that final deck. After that, we'll have a fun group send off where all the teams will come together. They will share some learnings that they had. They'll share the impact that they had on the client. We'll have a kind of a fun rah-rah session, and we'll send you into your weekend. So that's what Strategy Sprint Project Week looks like from Monday to Friday. It's a full-time commitment. If you don't have 30 to 40 hours to commit to the project week, then this is probably not the right time for you to be doing this. It's intensive. It's hands-on. You learn a lot, but that's because you're doing a lot. Here's who the clients are going to be for this iteration of Strategy Sprint. They are either market disruptors or market leaders. And so just here's a sampling of a couple of the clients that are going to be involved in this Strategy Sprint. There's an on-demand beauty platform that's looking to triple their reach, move from 3 cities to 9 cities in the US South and Southwest region. And they're looking to develop a comprehensive go-to-market strategy. So one team, and I don't know right now which team that will be. Again, there's a public drawing that we do where you are assigned to a client and a project. One team will build a go-to-market strategy for that on-demand beauty platform. Another team will build a turnaround strategy for a 6-figure food service business that was thriving, but has recently been experiencing declining traction and foot traffic. So they're looking for a turnaround strategy. They're looking to reignite growth. Your job will be to develop a growth strategy for that food service business. There are a couple other clients as well that teams will be staffed on, but this gives you a sense of the types of clients you'll be supporting. Small to medium-sized businesses who can't afford to go to a Bain or a McKinsey or a BCG, but are looking for real-world help to either survive or thrive in these challenging economic times. And you get a chance to build skills and also help these businesses make it here as we're experiencing macroeconomic headwinds. So you'll be dealing directly with the CEO or the founder or the leadership teams of these clients. They're going to be heavily invested in these projects. And your project leaders, your mentors, are going to be former MBB consultants. So again, just a sampling of who your project leaders are going to be. One is Lisa Bright, former McKinsey consultant, who's now also scaled her own startup to multiple 7 figures. Fantastic mentor, fantastic project leader, amazing human being. Love Lisa. Some of you may have had the privilege of working with her, either in a prior strategy sprint or in a coaching session. She's awesome. If you're assigned to her team, you're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to be pushed as well because Lisa's got high standards. And I think if you're going to be engaged in strategy sprint, then you want someone like that pushing you and really getting every ounce of performance and professional development and skill development out of you that they can. So Lisa's one of our project leaders. Another project leader is Ray, another former McKinsey consultant, MBA at Stanford GSB, fantastic coach, mentor, project leaders, got robust consulting experience, specifically in tech and private equity. And he's got a lot of startup experience as well. You're going to have fantastic experience if Ray is your project leader. He's a kind of in the weeds type of leader. My experience with Ray is he's someone that doesn't just tell you what to do, but he shows you how to do it. He's got the heart of a mentor and a heart of a teacher. And I think if you're on his team, you're really going to experience that and benefit from the wealth of experience that he brings to your team. So both fantastic mentors, fantastic project leaders, both former McKinsey consultants. I think you'll get a lot from them, not just because they're going to help you with your work stream, but you're going to see how they think, how they operate, how they break down problems. And there's a lot of learnings to be gained that are just by osmosis from working with someone with that background, yet even for a week. So there's a little bit of background as far as what Strategy Sprint is, what you do in Strategy Sprint, how we try to set you up for success, who your clients are, who your project leaders are as well. All right. So I have used up my time to explain Strategy Sprint for you. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over now to Catherine Monroe, who's a former strategy sprinter. She's done 3 projects with us. Catherine, do you mind just introducing yourself to our audience here?
Yeah, of course. Hello. I'm sure you guys are spreading multiple time zones, so I won't put a timestamp to that. My name's Kat. I am a wet lab chemist currently working in Abu Dhabi. And I got into strategy sprint during the pandemic, right? I'm a wet lab chemist. The country shut down and we had relatively locked doors for close to 9 weeks. And I Googled things to do when you're stuck inside. And Management Consulted was one of the websites that came up. I got my first project and I really liked the experience. So I kept signing up for that.
Catherine, I love it. So you said you've done multiple projects. Can you tell me about your favorite project? Who was the client and what did you do specifically on that engagement?
So my favorite project was the first project I worked on because it was with a client that was entirely unrelated to what I do on my day-to-day basis. So the first project was a boutique play space for children in a community, right? It was called Roam Play Space. And they were looking to stay afloat during COVID, get out of the red in general from just opening prior to COVID, and then looking for opportunities to expand and stabilize themselves after COVID. So we got to do a 6-week, 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month plan for them so that they could understand how they could grow their business and what opportunities they should really look for. What I did was, I guess what people in the business world would call business analysis. So I looked at their competitors, I looked at opportunities that they were missing out on, and I looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly of children's daycare situations.
And what did you find?
I found that I love walls with bright colors and butterflies. I don't know. I was able to identify several spaces across the country that had similar situations, and some places were doing really well and others were not doing well. And it's amazing what people are willing to post on their social media platforms. So you can actually start to see what picks up with spaces and what drops with spaces. And you can use that information to help your client, right? And that's what we did, right? So the model that we used was a play space in Philadelphia that was doing really well by integrating other community activities. And then we looked at some that had closed recently and why they had closed. And it was because they weren't necessarily willing to divert their business plan in general.
Mm. Can you talk to me about the client's response to your final recommendation? Just initially.
They were the best. The slide deck was made to be very playful because it is a kid's play space, but truly they took every slide in with immense detail down to, the slides are not text heavy. They're not visually heavy. They're all actionable, but their questions back on those actions were truly they wanted to implement whatever they could to keep their business afloat. So I have to say they were the most engaged client that I've worked with so far.
And we kept in touch with them. And just so you know, and everybody knows, right, they implemented as many recommendations as they could from the recommendation set that your team offered. And they credited this engagement with keeping their business afloat during COVID. So incredible impact as far as keeping a business alive during a really challenging time and saving jobs in the process, and also continuing to provide a community service in that community for a lot of families. So beyond the experience and the skills that you gained, I think that's just got to be really fulfilling as well, that the work that you put in was worth it.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, And most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Yeah, these are not hypothetical situations. These are truly operations that people are either truly invested in themselves because it is either their passion project or their livelihood, or it's something that they're trying to maintain because it's something they were handed, right? So some of the other clients, it was like the son took over from the father and now he had to figure it all out himself. So no, you get to engage with people in real life situations, and that makes it so much more interesting than what I do at a bench.
Yeah. Okay, no comments from me there. Did you have any light bulb moments during this engagement? One of the things that I found really interesting that you mentioned was each slide was actionable. And I don't know if that was your light bulb moment, because it's not how most of us were taught to make stories and presentations in decks. It's not the academic approach. Or did you have another light bulb moment on that engagement instead?
Yeah, I would argue that the hard skill that was driven home across all the projects was how to not just present data, right? Not be like, this is your maximum, this is your minimum, but put context to what that means and motivation to how to move it forward or backward, right? Like, what can these people truly do to benefit their business? And putting that in a concise way that, people, you want your client to be able to read the slide deck once you're no longer talking them through it, right? And that is exactly how you are trained in this program to design all of the information you're putting forward.
Absolutely. It's the only way to influence without formal authority, which is all consulting is. Right? You can make all the recommendations in the world, but if you can't gain buy-in, if you can't motivate action, it doesn't matter, which is why we harp so strongly on that inside the program. What would you tell someone if they're on the fence about applying? And I don't want you to just say you should do it, because I think there's this is right for some people and it's not right for others. So can you just talk about why it was right for you, and what would you would tell others if they're trying to figure out if it's right for them?
So this was right for me because, one, I was looking to do something more diverse from what I was doing in my actual job. So this was a brand new skill set to me. It gave an entire new perspective and paradigm as to what was going on. Two, it allows you to think through a project and implement a solution. So it goes beyond the theoretical. And I work in theory all day. So to take something and actually have a product at the end was super rewarding. And so it was right for me because I was looking for these two things in my time. Now, if you're considering any type of consulting at all, this seems like a pretty good crash course. It is fast-paced. It is not for someone who is also trying to manage, their day job, if you're trying to load on an 80-hour schedule, it's not going to be easy. But if you're willing to take the time and engage with your team and engage with your team lead, it's a solid experience. I've gone back and done it 3 times. I'm considering doing it again. I advocate for this.
I love it. Catherine, you're putting your money where your mouth is by doing this over and over again. So I think that's, to us, the biggest compliment you could ever give us. One question I have for you is, you're based in Abu Dhabi. Management Consulted is based in the US, even though we operate globally. So, and your team members were from all over the world. How did that work?
The last project spanned 13 time zones.
That's the true consulting experience right there.
Honestly, though, if you have team members that are engaged, it doesn't matter what hour of the day it is. The world is set up on technological platforms where everyone can see things in live action if they're awake, or watch the tracked edits if they've decided to go to bed like a normal human. Like, that's okay. I think if I'm going to hit on a soft skill, because you guys asked me to pull some favorable hard skills and soft skills before coming on, your active listening definitely gets tested. Because if you're not paying attention to what is being presented to you by your team members, you can entirely derail the project. And no one's going to notice until your partner meeting, and then you have to work 10 times faster and harder.
You might as well just be on the same page from the very beginning. Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's no requirement from our end that everyone's working at the same time. You just put in, you own your work stream and you do your work when you're awake, and you meet once a day with your team and ensure you're on the same page.
I will argue spreading all of those time zones means you make a lot more progress if your team works well together.
Yeah.
So the first person that wakes up in the morning is doing their piece. It's being edited by the second person who's also implementing their own work. So you basically get 24 hours of functional work.
Absolutely. Instead of the 10 hours that you would have gotten.
Yeah. No, it's nice.
Amazing. Catherine, any final thoughts, anything else you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about before we open it up to the audience?
So I did one of these before I signed on to my first strategy sprint, and I reached out to Valencia, who was in my seat at the time. And I will say that this is arguably the softest platform you can learn on, but you'll learn a lot. So the whole idea behind what Management Consulted is trying to present here, I believe, is exposing you to something that you may be interested in the best way possible.
Amazing. Yeah. Hey, if you're trying to figure out if consulting is right for you, you might as well do it for 1 week and figure that out instead of going through the rigorous recruiting process and then figuring out at the end, you know what, that 6 months of case prep wasn't worth it because I don't like this. So, even if you're not yet sold on consulting, this is a great exploratory move to make to figure out, okay, is this really something that I enjoy? And is this something that's right for me or not? Well, hey, we'll do this then. We'll cut the Q&A off here. There's only 4 spots left. They're going to go really fast. So even if you think you're interested, I would apply. It's about a 3-minute application. That way you can at least get a approval or rejection notice. And that way, you're moved forward in the process as you're still trying to figure out if you want to commit or not. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us and staying up late to hang out. It's great to see you again. And hopefully we'll see you too in a future strategy sprint.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me talk to anyone who wanted to listen about this, because I really do think it's a program that will stretch people in ways they aren't expecting.
There are just a few spots left for the next edition of Strategy Sprint in January of 2023. The link to apply is in the show notes. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for tuning in to Strategy Simplified. We'll catch you again on Wednesday. Cheers.